How to pay for college. This is what every parent wants to know right now. And it's an important question. It's also a simple question, but the answer, not so simple. But that said, I have so many different strategies that really can play into this. Now, today I want to break it down into 5 main areas that you can focus on when it comes to paying for college. But that said, make sure you hit subscribe because every week we release a new strategy working towards a debt-free degree for you and your student. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System and Debt-Free Degree Lab, and this is what we do. We teach families how to build strong financial futures rather than ones that are buried in student loan debt. Now, I primarily focus on scholarships, but there are so many strategies that we can use in addition to scholarships that can really complement them to get us towards that debt-free degree. Now, this is focused on U.S. citizens and residents, not international students. Okay, so I want to get into the 5 ways to pay for college, but I do want to also say that whenever we're talking about paying for college, we talk about a 2-part equation here. The first part is actually bringing down the cost to as little as possible. So not just saying, okay, this is the school and no matter what it is, we're going to find a way to cover it, but figuring out, well, is there a better financial fit? How can we get the bill to as little as possible? Then the other part of the equation is, okay, now where can we find debt-free money to pay for it? So that's the 2 sides of the equation that we need to balance, bringing down the cost and finding debt-free money to pay for it. So how can we balance that? So that said, when we're focusing on how to pay for it, that's what I want to focus on in today's video. So the first topic I want to cover is FAFSA. We have tons of videos specifically on FAFSA, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. You can find our entire FAFSA playlist linked in the description, maybe somewhere here on the screen as well, but that will walk you through the specifics of FAFSA. But that said, FAFSA is how your student can really maximize financial aid. It is a free federal form where your student will have to submit all of their financial information, and then you will as well as the parent or guardian. So most colleges will require this. In fact, we tell all of our families always submit FAFSA, even if someone tells you it's not worth your time. Because even if it doesn't give your student debt-free money, it often gives your student access to the best term student loans versus having to get them from private banks, etc. Now, when submitting FAFSA, it will give your family a SAI, a student aid index. This is a number at the end of the form where it will give your family kind of a result. It used to be called the expected family contribution because it was the amount that your family was expected to contribute. That number is what the schools will use to determine how much money to provide your student with. So like I said, FAFSA is important. Every student, every family needs to submit this. All right, the second way to pay for college is my favorite and my area of expertise, and that is scholarships. So scholarships, they're everywhere. They're awarded on so many different criteria. The amounts can range from, I've seen $250 Visa cards to $100,000 scholarships. There are so many different options when it comes to scholarships. These are not just based on financial need or even necessarily always competitiveness when it comes to, say, merit or test scores or GPA, but they can be based on so many different things. Now, each scholarship does typically have to be applied to independently, so this does require legwork, which is why the scholarship system exists, because we teach students and families how to make the process more efficient, how to build a system around applying to scholarships. But that said, it does require work. There's no easy button where we can just hit a button and win $100,000. Now, that said, if your student can get enough scholarship money, they can not only graduate debt-free, but actually receive an overage check every semester, which is what I experienced when I went to college. Now, if you want to learn more about my experience and where to find these legitimate scholarships, then check out my free training. It's about my 6 steps to securing scholarships. You'll find the link somewhere here on the screen. You can go to thescholarshipsystem.com/free training, or you can check out the description. We'll link to it there as well. Okay, now the third method when it comes to paying for college is one where you're still paying. However, it might be a way to avoid debt, and that is payment plans. So most schools will offer some sort of payment plan option. They may charge a fee. However, oftentimes this fee is way less than any kind of interest a student would pay on the balance. So this is where perhaps your family can squeak by and you can afford to to make small incremental payments. You just can't pay the lump sum for the semester right then and there. That is where these payment plans can come in. It can also possibly give your student time to find funding and maybe earn some money to help cover the bill. I have an entire video all about tuition payment plans, so we will link to that in the description as well and somewhere here on the screen. Okay, now the fourth way of paying for college is 529 plans. Now, some of you may have a couple years until college. Some of you may already be there. But even if you did not start a 529 plan when your student was a baby, it can still be worth putting some money aside, especially if you're in one of the states that actually give tax advantages to investing in 529 plans. Now, you always want to talk to a financial advisor, but 529 plans, these are an investment vehicle that's specifically focused around educational expenses. The great thing about this is that if your student does not end up using the 529 plan, it is now able to be rolled into an IRA for retirement. So don't think of it as just lost money. It can actually benefit them for the rest of their life if they end up not using it. The other thing, going back to scholarships, is if your student gets scholarship money, they can then pull the equivalent balance out of their 529s without getting hit with the penalties. Now, they will have to pay the taxes, but they don't have to pay the 10% penalty of using the money for something other than school, because you can prove, well, we don't need this part of the money because we got this scholarship. So that's a little loophole and another reason why we want to get scholarships even if we have 529s. Now, comment below, did you start a 529 plan? And if so, how many years before college did you start it? Are you one of the people that started it last minute? And if so, again, that's still fantastic. You can still, any penny put away can still be beneficial. Okay, now the fifth and final, and in my opinion, the last resort when it comes to paying for college, are student loans. I have videos all about student loans as well. Everything from what are the different types to what are the differences between the different government ones to how to calculate interest. We have covered it all. So you can find the link to that playlist in the description as well. But student loans, this should be the last option when it comes to paying for college. Right now, it's taking on average 21 years to pay off student debt. So we're talking about a student paying on this money for longer than they've been alive when they signed for it. So again, we want to avoid this if we can. Now, just briefly, I want to talk about the two different categories. Now, federal student loans, like I mentioned when I covered FAFSA, this is money that's awarded by submitting that form. Government loans will always, pretty much always be better than anything that you'll get outside of the government. So we always want to utilize that option, and then what's left, then we can find that money through private loans. The reason it's more beneficial is because, well, we saw through COVID, they immediately halted payments. It's typically better interest rates. Students can borrow the money without needing a cosigner. There are unsubsidized loans where the interest doesn't build until after they graduate. So there's a lot of different perks when it comes to the money from the government. These are called subsidized loans or unsubsidized loans. But again, you can only access these if your family submits FAFSA. Okay, and then we have private loans, which if you are curious about private loans, we do have an entire blog post all about how student loans work. I even share my favorite lenders, so we'll link to that in the description if you are to the point where you need to find some private loans. But when it comes to private loans, there are so many different banks and institutions, different terms, different rules, different payment agreements, co-signing agreements, interest rates, credit score requirements. It really varies. And this is why I tried to break it down really well for your family in that blog post. So again, we'll link to that in the description. You can also go to thescholarshipsystem.com/lenders, and that is where I list my favorite private lenders. And again, this is always the last source. So I have tons of strategies on how your family can work towards that debt-free degree. But if you're down to the wire and you do need some money for this semester, then this is where you can go. Now, that said, I do want to share, we've had families find us after freshman year of college, or maybe when they already covered the bill for freshman year, and then they worked on everything that we teach in the Scholarship System and Debt-Free Degree Lab. And so they slowly worked their way to where they did not have to borrow anymore. So if your student had to borrow money for freshman year, just know that doesn't mean that they will have to borrow it for every year thereafter. You can change that moving forward by applying to scholarships and all these other ways that we share in the scholarship system and Debt Free Degree Lab. Okay, so that said, again, make sure you check out that free training, my 6 steps to securing scholarships. It's at thescholarshipsystem.com/free training. We also link to it in the description. And then also make sure that you hit subscribe because every week we release a new strategy to paying for college. I hope to see you in the next video.